Thank you. Be seated. Good morning. Thank you for coming out today. I'm representing the MCA family. We'll listen to Rhett Snider's senior thesis presentation. I'm Corey Telstra. I've had the privilege of working with Rhett all year long as he's been my senior assistant. Really, I've worked for him all year long. And joining me today on the panel is Ms. Rachel Harvey, who we're speaking about. And we are just so excited. Before we get started, let's say a quick prayer for Rhett. O Heavenly King, O Comforter, the Spirit of Truth, you are in all places and you fill all things. Thank you for bringing us here today. Thank you for Rhett. Thank you for all these seniors. Thank you for our MCA family. And thank you for the opportunity to be here and just listen to Rhett's heart. We ask for calm and peace as he just tells us what's on his heart. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right. It's May 27th, 1943, and a B-24 by the name of the Green Hornet with its crew of 10 crashes in the Pacific Ocean. Of those 10, only 3 would make it out alive. Phil the pilot, Mac the tail gunner, and Louis Zamperini the bombardier. Phil and Louis would go on to survive a 47-day float in the Pacific Ocean. Mac would perish on day 33. They would do all this while fighting off sharks, dodging Japanese planes, living off of only the rain and fish that they caught. Upon their capture, Phil and Louis would be separated and sent to 2 separate Japanese concentration camps. As we learned in American history, these would be the same concentration camps that would end up killing hundreds of thousands of American pilots and POWs. Japanese brutality was unmatched, and the guards were well known for randomly lashing out and beating the prisoners, often to the point of death. The camp doctors were far from that, more like a group of mad scientists, often using the prisoners as lab rats for new drugs and dangerous surgeries. Sadly, Louis was one of these unfortunate prisoners, and on the 3rd day of his capture, he was injected with an unknown substance that almost took his life. However, Louis Zamperini was no stranger to difficulty. Growing up during the Great Depression in California, he had a town-wide reputation as a troublemaker and thief. In his early high school years, he was often bullied for his untamable hair and rather large ears. Thankfully, his older brother Pete helped Louis redirect his anger and energy into something worthwhile, which for Louis meant running. In his senior year, Louis would run a 4-minute and 21-second mile, an incredible record that would stand for the next 20 years and eventually pave the way for him to compete in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. So how did Louis go from competing in the Olympics to fighting for his life in a concentration camp? Well, one thing about Louis was that he was not one for sitting around idly. So when the war began, instead of waiting to be drafted, he decided that he was going to serve his country, so he signed up. He could have easily stayed in the U.S., finished his schooling, gone on to compete in many more Olympics, but instead he decided to serve. He felt that college was not a challenge enough and that he needed a new and bigger challenge, which for him was learning to fly, so he joined the Army Air Corps. After completing training, instead of making pilot, he was assigned the position of bombardier. However, this did not stop him from having his friend Phil teach him to fly while they were on missions. Louis was never satisfied with where he was. No matter what he committed his time and effort into, he gave it everything he had because he knew that he could do it better. He also knew that the only way to improve was to stay committed and disciplined. No matter what Louis did, he gave it everything he had, whether it was getting up early to run in the morning before school, practicing after school, learning to fly, or surviving years in a concentration camp. Louis was one of those rare people that never stopped improving himself. After reading Louis' story in the book Unbroken by Lauren Hillebrand, I saw a trend in the way that he went about his life. Anytime he faced a new challenge, he first made a plan, and then he would execute that plan with a fierce energy. He stayed focused and on track. With his running career, he made it a habit to run everywhere. And no matter where he was or what else he was doing, he took time out of his day to run. By taking this time out of his day, Louis was training his body and mind. He was practicing self-discipline and hardening his mind. Every time we do something that makes us uncomfortable or pushes us outside of our bounds, we are growing. Like everything else in life, it takes practice to master anything. So if we want to be more persevering, if we want to be mentally strong, we are going to have to practice. But this means pushing outside of our limits, making ourselves uncomfortable, and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Growth also requires us to push past the mental and physical limits that we have or that we have set for ourselves. When we work out, our muscles are torn apart. but after being torn apart, they rebuild and restructure themselves so that they can better withstand the stress that they are put under. Without any instructions from us, our muscles adapt just from being put under stress. Our mind, like the rest of our body, only grows when it is pushed and forced to change. Why should we be striving to change, though? Why should we be uncomfortable? We're all going to face adversity in our lives. It's a guarantee. So, if we know that we are going to face adversity and challenges, why should we not then be preparing for those challenges? A great example of this, and one that is prevalent here at MCA, is being a student athlete. Anyone here that is a student athlete can attest to this struggle. We have to keep up with homeworks and grades, all while getting up early for practices or staying late. Why do we do this? We could be hanging out with friends, pursuing other hobbies. What comes from the sacrifices that we make? Well, this goes back to my earlier point about having to push ourselves to grow. Without even knowing it, students are preparing for their futures. Being a student athlete here at MCA means learning to balance school and your sports, which means you must know how to manage your time. And as hard as this all seems, it all comes back to self-discipline. This means setting aside time out of your day to do school and saying no to distractions such as idly scrolling on social media or playing video games. When we do this, we grow, but we have to push past the limits that we have. Self-discipline is only part one of a two-part equation, for you must also have integrity. They go hand in hand and they feed each other. Before I go any further, though, I'm going to define those real quick. Self-discipline is doing the things you need to do even when you don't want to do them. And integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Integrity, in C.S. Lewis's book, The Screwtape Letters, he says, he only means abandoning the clamor of self-will. Once they have done that, he really gives them back all of their personality. Lewis is making the point that once we have turned our focus back on God and away from ourselves and our fleshly desires, we can truly then succeed at anything that we put our minds to. When we have integrity, we have a desire to do what is right, and self-discipline is the completion or fulfillment of that integrity. It's doing another set when you're working out. It's writing another 200 words for that paper that you've been working on all day. James 1:2-4 says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing." James is saying that we are guaranteed to face those struggles. But if we push through and overcome those, we will grow. My point is this: it doesn't have to be an extravagant act. Keep it simple. Do well in the small things, and this will make it easier to face those larger challenges that we are guaranteed to have. Self-discipline, as previously stated, is only part one of that two-part equation. Because it's integrity, it is the integrity to do something correctly and to do it to the best of our ability that helps us cultivate the self-discipline that we need to do hard things. Now, people are going to tell you that success only comes when you achieve incredible things, such as growing your personal wealth or setting a new school record. But this is only halfway correct. Sometimes we end up setting our priorities in the wrong order. And when this happens, we get so focused on reaching our goals that we end up hurting not just ourselves, but others as well. I saw many examples of this in my economics class this year. Leaders all over the world would put money before everything else, often neglecting their responsibilities as leaders and forgetting about the people underneath them that they were in charge of. In some cases, the leader's inability to set priorities in the correct order would lead to famine, and in other cases, the collapse of the entire government. Success is not only based on achieving incredible things. Real success is based on improving yourself and those around you, and this requires integrity and self-discipline. For my thesis, I had the opportunity to interview Ariel Lowen, a top competitor in the CrossFit Games and a mother. During our interview, she made several great points and was extremely helpful with my thesis as a whole. But as we spoke, she kept coming back to how important it is to have our priorities set in the correct order, and her story is a fantastic example of this. Ariel had been competing in the CrossFit Games for 4 years and never placed as well or as high as she wanted to. So she doubled down on her workouts and gave everything she had into preparing for the 2018 games. Those games came and went, and once again she did not place. Shortly after, she found out that she was pregnant with her first child. So she stepped back from her training to prepare for her child. For the time being, since she could not work out, she started focusing on building her relationship with God and started getting more involved with her church and family. After having her daughter, Ariel returned to her training, but with a new plan. She decided that she would focus more on raising her daughter and growing her relationship with God than she would on competing or being a competitor. In 2021, when Ariel began competing again, she placed 14th. In 2022, she placed 11th. And then in 2023, she placed 3rd. After looking back, Ariel said that I did not start to succeed until I put God and my family above my success as a competitor. She said that after putting God and her family before her success as a competitor, she was able to focus more on what mattered in the long run, and that God did bless her diligence. Matthew 6:33 says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." As Christians, our priority should still be the fulfillment of the Great Commission. Sometimes we get so caught up in achieving our goals that we lose sight of the big picture. I am all for setting lofty goals. I think we should, as it helps us look at and plan for the future. This ties back to being a student athlete. At times we can be so focused on sports that our grades suffer, or a less common occurrence would be focusing on school so much that our grades suffer. Hasn't been me. Either way, as a student athlete, we have taken on a challenge. We have to learn about time management. We must practice and develop self-discipline, and we must also use integrity in our everyday lives. Becoming a better student athlete is as simple as not giving up and continuing to lean into those challenges. It takes time and practice, and the skills and life lessons that we learn are invaluable, I promise. By pushing ourselves in high school, we are training for the future. We are preparing for the challenges that we are guaranteed to face. We are doing hard things, but we must take Ariel's advice and reorder our priorities to put God and family before our success as a competitor, and believe and trust that God will bless our diligence. In conclusion, we need to be participating in activities that push us, that make us uncomfortable. This is how we are going to grow. We must learn and develop self-discipline and integrity, as these will help us achieve the goals that we have set. We must remember that it is not only about achieving great things or making a lot of money. It's about caring for those that we have around us, beneath us, and learning from those ahead of us. We must be careful when taking on a new challenge, and remember to reorder our priorities, to put God and family before our success as a competitor, and trust and know that God will bless this diligence. So, go out, do hard things, make yourself uncomfortable, set high goals. Thank you.
Now you can take a breath. Well done. See if I can manage the microphone today. That's my goal today. That's my hard thing today, is the microphone.
It's the little things.
It's the little things in life, right? Very nice. Very nice. Look where we are. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah, you've said it. Yeah. So, I love your topic. I love that you're passionate about this topic. But before we really get going, I'm going to ask you, what's coming up next year? What are your plans?
So, I applied to A&M back in the fall, and recently, earlier this month, received their PSA program. So I'm going to go do a year at another one of their schools and then transfer to College Station in the fall of 2025.
That's awesome. That's a hard thing. So
it's all good. It all worked out.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like some of these colleges, it is lofty goals to try to apply to them, but way to go. So how did you come up with this topic, and why? What was your thought process behind why you wanted to talk about this?
The world is constantly changing. People are changing with the world. And I could have spent months preparing for a 15-minute speech to dog on the state that the world's in right now, or give people a plan and hope and know that it's possible to achieve great things. I think we should strive to stand out. I don't think we should be fitting in anywhere, especially as Christians. And that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be looked at in a different way, for people to know that you don't think like them. And you have to be okay with that. So instead of hating on the world and where it's at, let's plan and prepare for it.
That's very wise to hear from somebody your age, and I really appreciate that. I think we do forget that as Christians we are supposed to stand out. And I can absolutely respect that. To be in the world but not of the world.
Yes, ma'am.
That's fantastic. So, what is the hardest thing you've ever had to do?
Physically, I think it would be summiting Mount Rainier. I had the chance to go with my dad last summer, and we climbed the third tallest mountain in the lower 48, and that was absolutely insane. I thought we were prepared for it. I thought we'd climbed enough stairs and bleachers and walked around with enough weights on our back, but no.
Yeah, that was my next question.
It's something else.
Wow. How old were you when you did that?
I was 17.
My goodness. Way to go, Dad. I'm thinking about what it would be like for me to have to climb something like that with my kids. I'd be like, yo, I'll have a good time. I'm not even doing the Bunker Hill Monument. We're all good. So, do you think that some people just live to do hard things in their life? Do you think there are people like that out there constantly?
I think there are. There's a certain amount of dopamine that's released when we're in pain. And so some people get addicted to that. And so they pursue only pain and hard things. I think a well-known example would be David Goggins. He takes it way too far, goes to the next level. I mean, shouldn't be running with broken legs, but I mean, if that's your gig.
Wow. So you spoke about, I think in your paper, you talked about some physical challenges. You talk about Louis being a prisoner of war, and, I can't imagine the strength that you would have to make it through something like that and to see the benefit of surviving every day. We're talking about physical things. I'm very interested in talking about how you train your mind for some of these things. Tell me about how to train your mind. What have you done to train your mind?
So you can't lift weights with your mind. You can't run. It looks more like being consistent with your training. So when you work out, you're training your body, but you're also training your mind to accept the pain and be okay with being uncomfortable. And like your hands, your mind will form calluses, and it becomes easier. So something we talked about in track this year is that when you run, you don't actually become faster. Your body adapts to the pain and becomes comfortable with it. And so that's why running becomes easier. Not because you're actually improving, it's because your mind is improving. So we have to be doing uncomfortable things to train our mind. In school, that looks like doing a lot of homework, which MCA does a fantastic job of. They just pile it up there, I guess. Yeah.
All the deans are listening. Okay.
Oh, I think they know that.
Well, I think that's pretty intentional, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're telling me is you think MCA is a good preparation for life in that respect?
Yes, ma'am.
I told my kids that while they were here.
It's hard to believe when you're in it. I'm almost done, so I can look back and be thankful for it. But 2 years ago, I was not liking it.
You have a lot of people to inspire. And, so training your mind. So hard things, they're not limited to the physical things. As Christians, I think we do train to do hard things. We do have to have a mental framework to do hard things. In that respect, I think in our lives, we handle hard things such as loss and disappointment and even some failure. I know you have some thoughts on, as a Christian, how can I train myself to be strong during those moments when I experience those things? And how do I prepare myself to make it through those?
So a good example of this is Paul. How many letters did he have to write? How many churches did he have to correct? Even after what would look to us like he put everything he had into those. But if there was a weakness, he went back and put in more work. He was constantly improving not just his churches, but himself as well. If you'll remember, Paul had a thorn in his side. And he asked the Lord to take that thorn away, and God told him no. But there's only one mention of that thorn. So I'm going to assume that Paul took up that challenge and started living life with that thorn. But it didn't bother him anymore. He was building a callus, pushing past the pain and just overcoming that and continue to focus on what mattered more, which was his churches, his people.
Yeah, and I think I love your analogy there, because I think Paul did his best work while he was in jail.
Under pressure.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so let's see. I probably have. I don't know. I'm hesitant. I'm gonna pass it. Okay, here we go. Good job.
Thank you.
You settled down a little bit yet?
Trying to.
Okay. So I want to ask, because this just came up when we were in the workroom. You have a front row full of freshmen, and that's unusual. Why is that?
Some of these guys lived with me. Some of these guys have seen me at really low points, but they stood by me, continue to love on me. And I think there's a lot to be said for having people around you that care for you but are also willing to push you. Shout out Levi, who just says, throw on a couple more pounds. Plates, pounds. But no matter what you're going through, you should have people that are going to stand beside you and comfort you, but also tell you to get your crap together and get to it. Like, there's more life to live. We can't let little things, little inconveniences slow us down. We have stuff to do. We got the gospel to spread. So throw on an extra plate and lift the weight.
Okay. I like it. It rhymes. Okay, so I don't know you very well. Like, I know this year you were in track, and then you helped with track. And then I guess, I don't know if you just lifted in off-season spare time or power lifting. I mean, you'll have to clarify a little bit for me. Like, what sports have you been in?
I played tennis first year here, so sophomore year.
Okay.
And me and Brock made it all the way to state. Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Wait, can we talk about that now? Didn't we mention integrity? Okay, sorry, keep going.
I've run track all 3 years. This year was kind of a crapshoot, though. I showed up in January with a torn AC joint, so I didn't get to compete in powerlifting with Bowden. I didn't get to run the first couple weeks. Then I came back a little too hard and ended up fracturing one of my shins and ended up with tendonitis in my other knee. So then I was out for another 3 weeks. Showed up just in time for district, and got to compete. And currently we're headed to state. But during that time, Coach Cook made a valid point and said that you don't just run for yourself. Track can be an individual sport, but we're a team. And so he asked me to stick around and show up for practice even though I couldn't practice. And I had the great opportunity to coach high jump this year for the junior high. And we had a lot of fun. I think Cohen took first in almost every meet that we went to. Freak of nature over there. But it was fun to get to see them grow and overcome the challenges that they have. Hopefully they continue to pursue that. Some of them are going to go really far if they continue to push in and just lean into that feeling of being uncomfortable. I mean, it's hot out there sometimes, but suck it up. We got stuff to do.
Okay, so I was really excited for your topic, and I'm wondering, in the context of hard things, to me, there's external hard things, and then there's internal hard things, and sometimes sometimes they go hand in hand. Sometimes the physical feeds the internal, sometimes the physical alleviates the internal. But for you, what might that look like? And also, can you tell me about maybe internally difficult things that have nothing to do with the physical?
So we all feel pain, anger, and those are all feelings on the inside, but how we show those to others and how we deal with those is what makes us who we are, and there's a wrong and right way to do that. As an example, I lost my grandpa last year, and that was probably one of the most painful things that I've ever felt. I was just old enough to notice and really feel all those, and I didn't have anything to do with those. I didn't know how to deal with those, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm not real good with the feelings on the inside, but I think we should focus when we struggle on the inside. We should always fall back on Jesus, but at that point, we really should fall back on Jesus, completely. I spent a lot of time praying, just trying to understand and come to peace with some things, because I think that's something that we all look for. Not just comfort, but as humans, we don't like circles that are open on one end. We need closure. And when you can't find that in the world, and you shouldn't look for it in the world, you should always run to Jesus. But you have to rely on Him for that closure and for that inner peace. So.
Okay, I like your answer. I'm glad that you kind of gave us some small details about this spring semester, injuries, having to come back from injuries, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, do you have experience with difficulty that requires a process? Because for somebody who is athletic, one of the most difficult things to experience is an injury and having to come back from that. And even having to have patience with yourself and almost having a bird's eye view. And so, what does hard look like at the beginning of a process versus at the end of a process? Is there any involvement? Does the hard change?
I think it can depend on the situation. For me, I'm a hands-on learner, and so when I come upon a new challenge or something, I usually tend to dive right in and usually make a lot of mistakes. That's how I learn. So for me, the hardest part at the beginning would be learning to step back and look at it from all the angles, and coming up with a plan after that. Taking in all the information that you can, learning about the problem in depth, and then writing that plan. Thankfully, I've been blessed with a lot of family members that will help me look at it. But learning to step back for a second, take a breath, and not just dive right in is something that I struggle with at the beginning when it comes to facing new problems. At the end, I think that comes back to perseverance, because you've written up a plan and you've begun to execute that plan, but then, as you taught us so well in economic or financial math, you have to finish through. You have to go all the way. You can't stop 100 meters from the finish line. You don't give up and quit just because you're almost done. Almost is not complete. You got to finish. So.
Okay. Okay, you had a comment in your paper and in your speech that the less common thing would be focusing on school so much that sports can suffer. Why is that? What is it about us And especially students, I mean, I would say a big majority of students just crave the physical. So what is it though? Because it's a character. It's a character issue. It's so easy to go the other way, and it's sports, compete, and then all the school falls through the cracks, and that's easy, and we're okay with that. Why is it that? Why does that happen?
When we do stuff that's physical, like sports, there's an automatic reward. It's immediate. Like you cross that finish line and you're done. Like you run that 100 meters as fast as you can, give it all you got, and you're done. When you're playing a baseball game, like you're working and you're using everything that you have for hours at a time, but then you're done. When it comes to school, for me in particular, sometimes those assignments can take weeks or days, and the reward is slower, and so we're less likely to chase it.
Okay. I was just thinking, like to me, that's talk about a mental game.
Yeah.
Having to sit back and put the physical aside and put go all in on the mental game, and then even the process therein. And so, I don't know. To me, when they feed off each other that way, I mean, it's another tool, right? It's another tool to put in your back pocket.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. I just wanted to ask about that. I'm going to pass it before I keep going.
Well done.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here on this panel. I was happy to get to know you through the weight room, primarily, and through track. And I also have a great appreciation for this topic. This actually goes back for me when I first came here back in 2009. This is a topic that I was introduced to through Mr. Snell. And he actually talked about a book called Do Hard Things. Have you read that one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I figured you had. And just the benefit of seeking out hard things to do for that reason, to strengthen your character and that kind of thing. And so I have a special place in my heart for this. Also being a coach and understanding the process of building the physical, this has a lot to do with that. So just reading through and listening to your thesis, I'm trying to piece together, make sure I understand kind of your thought process, or I guess the equation that you referred to. You said it's a two-part equation. So you have self-discipline and integrity. You said those are the two parts of the equation.
Yes, sir.
Do those result in doing hard things, or does doing hard things result in that?
I think that kind of depends on the person. Like I said earlier, I learned from making mistakes or just go ahead and doing things. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I had to learn self-discipline, and I'm still working on that, and integrity, by being forced to do things, whether that was by myself or asked to do it by my parents. When it comes to school, the self-discipline to sit down and do homework is something that I still struggle with and something that I have to work on. And the integrity to complete that task, but complete it well and give it everything you have, that's what you're shooting for.
Yeah, it seems to be a chicken and egg type situation. Just like let's say we're in the weight room, obvious correlation there. Starting and doing something that's hard creates the ability to do something harder.
Yes, sir.
It creates the discipline, it creates the integrity, and thus you're able to do that next harder thing. And so, yeah, I think it's a cyclical thing.
Yes, sir. They build off of each other.
Sure. And so then you have this cycle going, and then you also talk about success. So is success kind of the telos or the end goal of doing hard things / self-discipline integrity?
I think we do hard things to improve ourselves.
Okay.
We're pushing ourselves to grow. I mean, we lift just so that we can lift more.
Okay. So where does that end? Like, what is the point of growing? What is the point of getting stronger? Is it to just keep getting stronger in this kind of nebulous, just constant thing with no goal, or once again, to use the MCA term, telos? What's the purpose of this?
As a Christian, it should be to be prepared to give an answer for what you believe in.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that should be the end goal, is to be prepared to tell others. That's what we are called to do. So prepare for that. Sure. Master that.
Yeah, and I think that's important. There's in business or in all these self-help books, you hear this a lot of, you have to have this big why, right? Depending on the hard thing, it has a different why. Let's say your hard thing is being disciplined to lift weights. If you're playing a sport, the why is I want to do well at the sport. As you get older, the why to lifting weights and working out is so I can hang out with my kids, and I can keep up with them and this and that. And yeah, I think our why should be, obviously for the glory of God, right? And I think that's a good answer, is always be prepared to give an answer. That's good. So Ms. Harvey mentioned and asked about the process of doing hard things, and we kind of talked about it a little bit. So the word that came to my mind as I was reading through was temperance, right? Which isn't a word, I don't think, that you would normally associate with doing hard things, right? Especially, using the example of Louis, he didn't seem like the model of temperance. And so I guess the question is, does temperance have its place in doing hard things?
I might need you to define temperance.
Okay. It has a patience aspect, I think. It has a governing aspect as far as scaling to ability, not going. I guess maybe a good analogy is, if I've never climbed a mountain, my first task probably shouldn't be Everest. Maybe my first task would be a 30-foot climbing wall, right? That's temperance. That's saying, I'm going to do hard things. I'm going to go
one step at a time.
Yeah, I'm going to, summit Everest just because I want to do something hard, right? And so, what place does temperance have in your mind with doing hard things?
I think it plays a very key role. As I said somewhere in this paper, keep it simple. Do the little things well, and complete those small tasks to the best of your ability. Give it everything you have, and the more of those that you do, the easier it will make those larger challenges. It's baby steps. You got to start out small and build your way up. But you don't just go and climb Everest. You got to go climb. Build up your tolerance and your strength. You're preparing for that challenge, but you're doing it slow and well.
And that requires wisdom. I know this because I've gone into the weight room multiple times since the 7th graders trying to deadlift 350 pounds. They haven't quite got the wisdom part of that. You need to do the bar first, right? You said, I forgot when it was, maybe during one of these questions, but what came to my mind was there's this phrase, choose your hard. Have you heard that before?
I have. I don't remember the context.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to ask you, how does that fit into this as far as just thinking about the phrase, choose your hard? How do you think that could fit into I could give you context, but then I would ruin the question. How does choosing your hard maybe fit into the point that you're trying to get across? Think about it.
Yeah. I think an example is probably my own life, mainly here at MCA. As y'all know, I don't enjoy school. I don't like sitting in classrooms all day. I would much rather be outside doing physical activities. And so, believe it or not, I've decided that I'm going to go do another 7 years of college. Like,
Choosing your hard.
yeah, exactly. You got to, it's not so much choosing your battles so much as choosing what's going to push you to grow in areas that you need to grow. I mean, we can always be striving to grow in all areas of our life. I mean, I can always be getting faster, but I really need to be focusing on getting smarter. Like, I need to be focusing on learning good learning habits, preparing and improving my future. So I need more school for that.
Yeah, you mentioned that with Louis in the first part is one thing that he would do is he would make a plan, and then he would work the plan, right? And I think in this respect, choosing your heart is what's going to get me to my end goal. You know, I think I can tell you now. I think a lot of times the reference with choose your heart is, you know, you can choose to do the hard thing for the right reasons, or you can choose to not do it and have the consequence of another hard thing that's not quite so positive.
Yes, sir.
Choices and consequences of that. And, you know, watching you, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's, you know, around campus, or I think even more impactful for me is watching you with your siblings and watching you with younger students. And the instance that came to my mind was we just finished a workout in the weight room, and Mr. Schumann needed help with a basketball goal, and he asked for volunteers, and without hesitation said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And you know, getting to know you more just in that instance, you know, was impressive. As far as, you know, it wasn't you were planning for the day, and you probably had other plans for that day, but you did it, and you did it well, and you did it with integrity.
That thing was heavy.
It was heavy, yeah. It took some hard brain power as well as muscular power. You're right.
Took all three of us.
Yeah. But I just want to say, you know, and I'll finish with this, is I think you do well at choosing your hard. I don't think you do it perfectly, but you got time. Right?
Thankfully.
Yeah, and I appreciate the example that you set for other students here, and especially these young guys that are watching you and shaping their decisions based on you. That's a heavy mantle, but my prayer is that you take that upon yourself with pride and humility. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Gotta watch all the water. When did you say you came to NCA?
Sophomore year.
You know, for somebody who hasn't been here for the whole game, you sure have done a lot. And I'm really impressed by that. I think, you know, that's definitely a hard thing. In your paper, you talked about the self-discipline and integrity, and I can't help but think that those are leadership traits. And I think that you have a personal goal to embody those pretty much in all you do, which is evidenced by the front row here. And I just wanted to praise you for that, because I think that's really amazing. So looking ahead for college, you said how many years?
7 more.
Okay, and the goal?
To become a chiropractor.
Okay. You know, sometimes, and I speak from experience, I've told you this before, never say never, because I think I've done all my nevers.
Sounds about right.
I think I have 8, and I've done all of them. What happens, and how can what you're talking about here with the hard things? Sometimes our plans don't work out, and so how do we handle that? I mean, you're going to go and you're like, I'm going to be a chiropractor, and you get there and you're like, maybe not. How do you think we use our do hard things, our self-discipline, and our integrity?
I think it starts here in high school. We're training our bodies and minds so that when we do come across those challenges in a year, 3 years, it doesn't matter. Instead of coming up on that wall and just folding, we instead overcome it. We use the skills and lessons that we've learned to either go over, under, around, or through. But with the time that we have here and the skills that we've attained at our time at MCA, there is no excuse and no reason to just quit. We're well prepared and more than ready to take on whatever lies ahead.
That is fantastic advice. Well, it's finally time to hand you the mic. I'm afraid.
It's not that bad. What is something that you tell yourself or say before you go out and tackle a new challenge? Do you have like a hype up song, hype up words, a speech that you give yourself? What do you got?
I know mine. Mine is, as the psalmist would tell us, he remembereth that we are dust. So I do the best I can, and I start again every day. But at the end of the day, I know that I'm not supposed to be perfect. And, it's okay just to do your best. So.
For me, it depends if it's physical or external or internal. If I'm going to go do a hard thing that is not very physically demanding, maybe more mental demanding, or difficult conversations or things like that, I'm probably turning to the Lord. I don't know if I have a set thing that I tell myself or a set verse, but in one way or another, I'm probably turning to the Lord.
I like it.
Physically, like if I'm going to go like
Bike,
throw down on bike, and I know that my heart rate's going to be like minimum 175 for 45 minutes. I have a friend that I call. So like Wednesday nights we always have this thing, and so when I'm driving out there, I always call this one friend. And it doesn't even matter what we talk about, but I always call her, and more often than not, she answers. And then whenever, as soon as we hang up, I probably put on some rap music, and I crank up the speaker.
There you go.
Just because I know, like earlier you're talking about you have to get comfortable doing the uncomfortable thing, and it's always like, I know what it's going to feel like, so I don't want to do it. And then I know what it's going to feel like, so I know that I can do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I do.
And rap alleviates.
So yeah, kind of two different answers depending on the situation. If I know I'm going to go into a struggle or a difficult task, this started back in high school for me. I memorized Romans 5:3-5. We rejoice in our sufferings because we know that it leads to perseverance and character, and that's a very rough paraphrase. And so that just kind of becomes my mantra. I started doing that when I had to run more than one lap at a time.
Bunch of psychos out there.
Yeah, crazy people. But then another one that's helped me through when I find myself in a hard time or in a hard situation actually came from a talk that Billy Ray's gave years ago when Bob and Bryce passed away. And I'm not sure if this is what he meant by it, but I took it from that. And we find ourselves asking why me when we have these hard situations. And the better question is, why not me? And so that's kind of the question I ask myself when I find myself in a hard time: is who better to handle this than me? Not in an arrogant way, but I am plugged into the Spirit of God, and He provides me with the fruit of the Spirit. And so who better to find themselves in this situation than someone who has a direct line to the Creator of the universe? And I think that also ties back into the Romans 5. I know this is producing something in me, not even always for my benefit, but for the benefit of others. And so that's something that I try to remind myself when I find myself in that situation.
All right.
Okay, and it's to me to go ahead and close us in prayer. Father, thank you so much for Rhett and the influence that he's been on all of these lives in this room, Father, not in the least mine. Father, I appreciate and I thank you for allowing me to meet and get to know this young man and to connect and to find commonalities in a way that is encouraging, Father. I thank you for the time that he put in doing this hard thing of writing a thesis and memorizing it and really putting himself into it, Father. I thank you for the people here and just the influence that they've had on Rhett. And just pray that as we move forward, that we don't forget the end goal of bringing you glory and being ready to give an answer when asked, Father. I pray all this in your name. Amen.